What's going on, College COD fans? Welcome to Week 5, Day 2 of competition. My name is Proper. Joined with me is the ever-so-lovely Katie Bedford. Joining us for the first time here on the College COD broadcast, Katie. It's awesome to have you.
Yeah, I've got to watch you guys from a distance for a while now, and I had some folks say, like, hey, do you want to make something happen? And I was like, yeah, I kind of do. It sounds like a lot of fun. So excited to be here and cast some games with you. And I always love to get to work with you, so it should be a fun time.
Yeah, a lot of people won't recognize we go all the way back to about like 5 years, even going back to the old Overwatch days. But even still, enough about the past. Let's talk about what we're getting into so far. Our matchup first on the docket. You saw it on Twitter. Everybody is fully aware of it. The Alpha broadcast is stacked with competition. We're starting off here in the Northeast for a Division A matchup. It's going to be the St. Clair Saints versus the Davenport Panthers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so taking a look, right, when I was watching these teams, an initial impression of them. So they've got the same overall scoreline right now. Both of the teams are at 6-2. Everything seems proper to be pretty evenly matched. The only standout you look at is when you get into the nitty-gritties of the hard points, and the general inference from that is that Saints, they're getting it done. They are 6-2, but they're not getting it done as cleanly as the Panthers seem to be winning their series.
We'll have that head-to-head to take a look at everything that Katie just wonderfully broke down for us as well, because you're absolutely right to say that when it comes down to the overall head-to-head between these two teams, inside this very stacked division as a whole, there's not a whole lot of legroom to speak of. I mean, you do have Northwood in here. We got to see what the Wolverines, U of M, were able to do, not just last week versus these Davenport Panthers rosters, but here is your head-to-head. The Saints, 6-2 overall, the same for the Panthers, who are ranked number 23, keep in mind you. The hard point is the immediate discrepancy. One more hard point win for the S&D out from the Saints, and the control is all knotted up 3-1 apiece. And what's interesting between these two teams, Katie, is that they both have similar losses, that they both went to map number 5, not the same round count, against University of Michigan. Both of them lost to Northwood, the discrepancy being that the Saints at least were able to take the search.
They were able to take the search, but again, I just have to go back to the hard point. That's what I'm concerned about. You have a flawless record. You have an 11-0 right now on hard point on one side of this matchup, and you have a 10-6 on the other. Yes, I mean, maybe they've won one more S&D, but those stat lines are essentially identical. So I think for the Saints here, if you want to get an early lead, you're going to need to start it off with a hard point win, because it just seems like if you want to extend this series out, hardpoint is going to where it's going to start for you, really, because S&D and control seem to be fairly evenly matched.
Hey, you got two in the series. You got to be able to at least find and make one of them stick. We can take a look at our home roster. It's going to be the St. Clair Saints on an absolute warpath ever since being knocked out of the top 25 power rankings that we do week in and week out. Priestley, Gorilla, Gucci Gang Sauce, and Brandon will be the 4 players that are fielded this time around for the Saints. And again, the biggest consideration for these 4 players, Katie, going forward is that they want to be able to solidify themselves as a top 3 team, to be in that top elite cut for stage number 2, but most importantly, to be considered a top 25 team again.
Well, in top 25, especially with the sheer volume of CCL teams available, is going to be a testament. It's going to be something you strive for. You've mentioned 23rd right now for the Panthers. So there's a lot for them to prove. And something I'm excited about personally is getting to see a lot of these players for the first time. There's players that have dabbled in the AM scene, so there's names that I might be a bit more familiar with. But what is always exciting to me is to see teams like this bringing together rosters, fighting, as you said, to get into that top 25 and make a name for themselves. And that name recognition, it starts when you're able to take down series like this.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the number 23rd ranked team for the week, the Davenport Panthers. Again, as far as a 4-player unit is concerned, definitely got pushed to the brink when it came down to that U of M matchup, but Gecko North. Thrax and Sheldon definitely made a strong name for themselves, specifically when it came down to those search and destroys. Really kept things close, and they're not afraid to keep things mixy, especially when you take a look at what Thrax and Sheldon were able to do across that series so far. And well, Thrax might be one of those players that you might be a little bit more closer to understand, Katie, again, coming from a long list of decorated Call of Duties in the past. Thrax is able to at least make their name, some better, some worse. So when it came down to that Modern Warfare year, from being much more of a around top 32, top 64 Challengers player.
Yeah, and I think taking a look at the names in front of me right here, you do have Anthrax, someone that I'm familiar with. But when I look at this team, that S&D, I mean, everyone knows the phrase S&D wins you championships, but it really does. And you have a similar record right now against the Saints, 8-2 to the 7-2 respectively for the Panthers. So being able to lock down that search and destroy, I mean, they have the flawless hardpoint record. If they string together those first two maps, I think it becomes very difficult for the Saints to start that reverse sweep stomp.
Let's go ahead and take a look at our best of 5 map set then to be able to see if this would be favorable for the Panthers to do exactly as Katie said, to be able to string together those first 2 maps would be quite decisive, given how Control is more of a toss-up. Again, teams have only been playing it for about, maybe about like a week and a half, maybe even close to 2 weeks at this point for us, Katie. And, well, it's a double dose of Tuscan, and I hope you love your double doses, because after that, it will be a double dose of Gavitu if we have to reach map number 4. And if we end up going the distance between these two teams, it goes to a Berlin Search and Destroy. Anything reaching out to you personally as far as what we can expect from these 3 maps?
Tuscan S&D right away. I really enjoy Tuscan Hardpoint. I think it's a lot of fun to watch Hardpoint play out on that map. Not quite as chaotic or frenetic as a map like Bocage, but Tuscan S&D, especially how difficult it is to play on offense for Search and Destroy on Tuscan. There's a couple maps where being on offense in that final round is going to be very difficult for you if it goes to something like a round 11. So I think whichever team can come out and rack up 1 or 2 of those offensive wins first in that Tuscan is going to have a much better time closing it out than the team that struggles. If you're only putting up the defensive rounds, you're not going to have a good time.
Yeah, exactly that. Another thing to also keep in mind is that we seemingly, especially from the beginning all the way until map number 4, we start in very close range proximity, right? We have all the MP40 in Rage when it comes down to Tuscan Hardpoint and Search and Destroy, and then it all just kind of explodes, and then we're going to have a lot more automatons. So when it comes down to that Gavitu control, especially, you're mostly looking at a 3-1 setup when it comes to ARs to SMGs. Same could be said about the hardpoints at the same time. There's a lot to be said, especially for how these players are more or less finding themselves, more defining for the roles here at the CCL. I mean, you got to be able to do whatever sticks. We even saw Volk be played last night by Fishity, of course, so it was not to the to the degree that I'm sure that they wanted to of what they saw in the recent Cup for North America, but even still, anything goes, as long as it's not G8, of course. And then you can end up using it to your fancy, whether it's 4 SMGs on the Tuscan, 3 ARs on the Gavitu, and then when it comes down to the Berlin Search and Destroy, and hell, even the Tuscan Search, Kar 98K can absolutely come out to play.
When I think it really depends, like, stick with what your comfort zone is, right? I think something that you can oftentimes see in teams that are maybe a little bit less experienced, a bit more nervous, haven't played together as much, is that you start to play to trying to take down your opponent's strength as opposed to playing to your own strength. So if you're in something like S&D specifically, you need to make sure that you have a playbook of plays you want to do. What are your go-tos on defense? What are your go-tos on offense? And how are you going to make those mid-round adjustments? Specifically, do you have someone who is prepared to be that IGL in those moments and help you make those adjustments? So I think for both of these teams too, work on your strengths, right? Going into these. Don't try and play to the other team. That is going to be less effective for you than just playing your own game.
I'm smiling because I always end up saying the same thing. You never want to play, if we're looking at this from the Panthers perspective, you want to play Panthers COD. You don't want to be playing Saints Call of Duty. If the enemy team is trying to dictate the pace on the opposite side, you don't want to try to at least go tit for tat at that point in time. You want to be able to almost play against their unforced errors. But kind of looking at this more of like an expansive type beat, when it comes down to this Northeast Division A, if you're unfamiliar, you go to collegecod.com and you can end up taking a look at all the divisions, all the different regions for the teams that do house within each one of these, and it's stacked, to say the least. Again, you have Northwood University. They're going to be on broadcast later for our second match of the evening versus University of Michigan. The Wolverines trying to make a big argument for why there could be the #1 team here in this division, but when it comes down to it, you have the University of Michigan again and Northwood. They're both undefeated here in the Pool A of the Northeast Division. St. Clair Saints and Davenport being 6-2 so far. It's going to be quite telling. Again, it's the top 3 teams that you end up looking at when we go in towards that top cut in stage number 2. That's right where you want to be. That this very much so could be that battle for third place.
Yeah, and these are those first round robin matchups. These teams have not played each other yet, but there should be VOD available, right? There should be preparation material at your fingertips to be able to look and see, for example, for Panthers, if you're the Saints, well, you're 11-0 in hardpoint. If you're Panthers, what are they doing so effectively to have a record like that in that mode? What maps do they favor? What maps do they shine on? Maybe what maps do they struggle a bit more with? If you can find some synergy with your team and your strengths and weaknesses, and you're able to select those maps effectively, as we've seen, Tuscan and then Gavutu are our 4 in Berlin. If we get to map 5, we'll have to see how it plays out. I'm not familiar with the teams, if they have preferences or strengths on these particular maps, but I'm sure we're about to see it any second, Andy, because I think we're just about to get ready to get into the game.
Yeah, we know that everybody's asking for everybody to start the match. Just remember, it's Ryan Switchy that you want to at inside of the chat. He is currently holding the button hostage for whenever the lobby does end up, of course, starting for itself. We will be getting in there shortly, just waiting on one player, of course. But you're right to assume, Katie, that there's not really much to go off of, especially between two teams that we haven't seen face off against each other, which is why I brought up the exclusive point that both these teams, for the 2 losses that they do have, were against the same teams. You know, when you go back and you take a look at St. Clair Saints and their loss versus Michigan, it's 2-3-5. All over again, the same thing of what you can talk about for the Panthers when they lost. I casted that match last week, and it's legitimately the same. That search and destroy, you're right to bring up the bumper sticker reference that it'll win you matches, it'll win you championships out of the day. You can have a strong hard point, sure, but if you're not closing out your search and destroys, you're almost guaranteed that you'll probably end up seeing that map 5. That obviously sooner rather than later, something's got to give, and either you're going to be second place, you're going to lose championships, or you're going to be knocked out of a bracket, or potentially for that top cut when it comes down to that stage number 2. So I think it's going to be interesting to be able to see, given how much time has come away from the Saints ever since they did end up losing their top 25 spot against U of M, ever since they lost that first week matchup versus Northwood, to see what type of adaptations that they have underneath their sleeves when they are going up against a relevant and somewhat stacked team here of the Panthers.
Well, it's hard too, because not only have these teams not played each other before, but when we talk about the games that they've lost to teams like U of M, one best of 5, one series is not a ton of data to really be able to go off of. We know, especially in a game like Call of Duty, if you had them play 3 best of 5s back to back to back, Andy, the results might look very different depending on how things go. So I think take with a grain of salt. If you're playing a team, you've only played them once, and maybe you get 3-0, 3-1. It doesn't tell the whole story of what to expect out of these teams, but let's get into it. A nice little overview here of Tuscan as we get started with a hard point. Map number 1 for the Saints and Panthers. Panthers looking to hold on to that 23rd spot. Saints trying to shake things up a little bit. Very evenly matched, but we talked about it. The 10-6 record for the Saints, the 11-0 Panthers. Saints, this will be an important game 1. How crucial do you think this first hard point is, Andy, for the Saints to win?
I think that if the Saints end up winning this hard point going in towards the search and destroy, I think it's going to be quite telling, given, again, how you end up taking a look at the records. I mean, this would be Davenport's first real hard point loss, considering, or even going up against Northwood was the only 2 hard points that they were able to look at for as losses are concerned. So, I mean, if you come out of the gate swinging for the Saints, then you can really set the pace in the precedent, but so far, the middle of the map, not necessarily the tussle that the Saints were looking for. They will lose numbers considerably, as Thrax will start off with a nice hot 2-0.
And Panthers, it's a nice side of the map to be starting off as well. Anthrax going for the 4-piece, can't quite get it, forced to back off. You are on your way to streak, so wise decision to just take that time. Can he hit the shots with the pistol? He can, but his teammates there to get the trade. Gorilla will take him out from top church. And so far, this is about as perfect of a start as you can get. Panthers first onto the point, locking it down, getting some nice series of streaks in the process. And now the Saints on the back foot because you've given up the entirety of the hill, hardly a contest. And if you're not already prepped for hill number 2, which it looks like they are, this could be over before it begins. So we're going to need to see a nice answer back from the Saints here. They will start collecting that time right away. And the kill feed, all green, as the Saints converge onto P2, but a top push from Panthers, all as one, flying around the backside of the church. Gecko with a triple. And now you have Sauce on the point, gets taken out. It seems like it's all Gecko in this break onto the hill. And, well, 20 points is all you're going to get if you're the Saints before the Panthers are back onto the point.
Yeah, I think for the Saints especially, you know, you can see the opening first hard point, very uncharacteristic to be able to say that the opening hardpoint wasn't a considerable 50-50, as it does typically unfold across many different hardpoints on Vanguard. You can see that, and you're basically staring down the barrel of what could potentially be a snowball for the Panthers. Now, Brandon is able to recontest themselves, at least for that scrap time, so that means that this hit on the rotation for the Saints is kind of, well, let's be honest, it's not as strong as you would think that the Saints would definitely want to be able to string together 2 and 3. Definitely not in a considerable spot to be able to make that happen. Now the Panthers set their teeth in for this hill, number 3 here on Tuscan, one of the hardest hills to break in the game.
And understandably so. Saints had a potential opening right here where you can see Sheldon. He was able to take it down 2. Can he make it to 5? He can do just that. Earns himself a streak in the process, and it seems like it's been smooth sailing so far on P3. But Sheldon really with the opening kill onto the Saints as they tried to rotate to P3, blew it wide open for them to get the setup they wanted and to look comfortable. And Priestley, he's trying to get a double. Brandon here to do what he can to support, but is it going to be enough to get onto the point as there's only 20 seconds left? It's looking like potentially yes, but at this point all you're getting is scrap time, if even that. They're breaking you early. They're only giving you seconds worth of time at the end of these hills. That's not going to win you the hard point. Grilla, I think, trying to do what he can to duck, dodge, and weave around these doors and stay alive. A nice win. Puts him on 2. But no surprise, look who's on P4. It's going to be the Panthers. They have set the pace through the entirety of this Tuscan opening map. And if you're the Saints, you're going to need to make something happen here pretty quickly. If you want to start coming back, this could get out of hand, especially if the Panthers are able to give it a 100-point lead if they get the rest of this time. So I'm a little nervous if I'm the Saints. I think they can do it, but especially when it comes to Sheldon and Anthrax, you're going to need to be able to shut them down.
Yeah, I mean, let's be candid here. You can battle over the scrap, but you better hope that you can at least contest the opening 30 if you are the Saints going forward. That's just simply not the case. Now we are truly battling.
And this is the first break they've had.
Exactly. The first clean break, I will say, to be able to at least guarantee themselves more than 15 seconds on a hard point. So these back 15 seconds are going to put themselves a little bit closer towards the Panthers scoreline, but you also have to take a look at the keen rotation going over towards 5. Nobody's inside of bunks for Saints quite yet. This linear hit is coming from the patio. Priestley, Gorilla combined for 2. Worth just trying to spam through the walls. Does have a little bit of a bait and switch, but Gucci Gang Sauce is going to end up resurfacing in bottom maps. What else can you do from the top side? Just one more player is going to be Threx down low. They do go 1 for 1, and that is more than ample time for the reinforcements for the Panthers to come back and reinforce.
And this is what I'm talking about. Anthrax, so hard to kill, just finessing his way around this staircase, using that verticality to his advantage to stay alive and just be a nuisance for St. Clair to contest on this point. But they have the reinforcements, especially where they're spawning, is just allowing them to continually duke it out over this point. You can see that reflected in the kill feed. But Saints, hey, what could have been a really dangerous situation for them, now they're chunking away. They're about to cross the 100-point threshold. Anthrax with a nice double to try and even things out. But don't forget, you do have streaks on the side of the Panthers that will come out at some point. And when I look at them initially, I want to talk about Priestley, right? He was struggling there for a bit. I think he was sitting at about 6 and 10 with 0 seconds of hill time. And if you're going to have no hill time, you at least need to be slaying out for the rest of your team to have a setup. And now 11 and 12 with 15 seconds plus and building. So I like this. It seems like Priestley waking up here for the Saints, and it is reflecting in the scoreline as Sheldon, I mentioned that streak, bringing it out as we get into the second rotation. We'll be able to take out Priestley, and now they're going to try and fly onto the point, but no break just yet. Sauce fighting for his life on a 3 spree, could potentially get himself streaks, but he's going to have to worry about a flood of players from his right. He gets 1, he gets 2, he gets the streak, and now he's on a 5 spree. And well, Saints, for the first time, will take a lead.
We'll be able to hold the lead. How long? Going to be the immediate consideration. Davenport Panthers, not necessarily welcoming as far as allowing the St. Clair Saints to work their way inside past church to be able to break inside these spawns. Such monotonous spawns as they truly are going to the backside of the column hill. You almost have to assume that the Saints have to make this double pinch effect almost really stick all the way through. Gecko's not going to allow it come through from the ruin side at the very least. Still 2 players though for the Saints inside of the church trying to influence themselves in towards the back. Gecko will at least read Brandon, and Gorilla is going to get taken down on the opposite side. So the Panthers now able to get themselves set up inside P2. Going to look to encroach forward, but a little bit of Icarus pushing too far close to the sun is going to force all of the Saints to be able to get those squad spawns on the east side of the ruins. But Thrax, how good have they been? 21 and 11 for the kid. Going to be able to recognize that, and that could just mean more slays. 2 HP will be cleaned up by Gucci Gang Sauce. But still, the effective push from the back of the Saints still coming up a little flat until Gucci Gang Sauce is able to find themselves 2 closer spawns. Might not mean much if you're the Saints, if you can't break inside this damn hill.
I was watching this. You had North from the Panthers. He was anchoring those right side spawns for this hill right until the hill hit, and then he gave them up. Saints are able to flip them out. But despite the fact that they get the flip and they get the spawns, well, Panthers are just winning their 1s, their 2s, and their 3s and are able to hold down the hill. So Saints will get the scrap time. They'll maintain about a 20-25 point lead, but no surprise, Panthers won this hill on the first rotation. They're looking to win it again on the second, but now with streaks coming in, a double from Gorilla. Saints are on the point. This is the first time they've gotten on this point. And now can they hold on to it? We've seen them start to pick up momentum here. It's been getting better. They've been doing a great job of rotating, breaking these hills, and holding on to the hills. But Anthrax now trying to play spoiler at 26 and 13. Can he get the double? No. Gets cut down, traded out by Gorilla. The Saints doing what they can to hold on, but Panthers on the point, and they'll need to hold this because what was an extremely comfortable lead and almost potential for a 100-point lead for them. Now you are fighting to work your way back into this hard point. You are undefeated 11-0 right now, and the Saints giving you a run for your money. But Sheldon 17 and 19 doing what he can, finessing here. Not for too long as Sauce playing spoiler, getting onto the point, continuing to mop up some of that scrap time. What they seemed resigned to get at the beginning of this hard point, they are now happy to continue to pick that up, win the rotations, and win the hills, and give themselves a 31-point lead.
It does not go unnoticed. Breaking inside P3 the way that we just saw the Panthers do it, it's typical. Gotta respect that coming through from the Panthers. I mean, yeah, it definitely helps when Thrax is just finessing for their life over by Wine, but now we go inside 4, where SMGs are going to have to keep their head on the swivel. Sauce will take down one player up top, but the hit from behind is going to be a lot more potent than what you wanted. Thrax, kill number 31 now for them, 31 and 16 overall. And if you are St. Clair, you have 25 seconds remaining inside this hill, and you would assume that they're going to hit it one more time. Scrap time means just about everything as much as it does for the initial. And as soon as that starts to come all the way through, there's been a lot of focus for the Panthers on the north side of the map. I don't think that they're going to be aware that you have Brandon and Gucci Gang Sauce trying to work their way inside of maps. North needs to go big. Even going 1-for-1 is going to be good enough, and they will do just that.
And Gecko now will be able to push in. Knows one is here. Wins the gunfight. Immediately traded by Priestley. And North is someone you have to talk about. He's double negative right now. He's 12 and 24. And yes, that's going to be a problem. You have Anthrax who's slaying out. But North, he's going to have to be able to play his life a little bit better than he is. Get that objective time. Try and stay alive in and around those points. But the Saints now with 2 on the hill trying to hold it down. I like this angle from Sauce, just using that Bureau for a bit of cover. Knows the push should be coming in shortly. Spots out North. Can't win the gunfight, though. Rips him off the heady, and now it's on to Priestley to try and hold on here with Gorillas. The Saints looking to get back onto the point, but 25 seconds left. You could very well see the Panthers retake the lead as we get ever closer to that 250 mark. Priestley, a double. Can he make it a triple? Of course he can. Why not? Working his way towards streaks, and if they can get those streaks, I think it might be game over for Panthers.
He's already got a glide bomb in his back pocket, right? So you would assume on this 3 spree would probably end up calling it in, so that they can end up sufficiently lapping themselves going in towards 1. We've seen a lot of teams being able to streak together 5 in towards 1, and that's going to be the immediate call coming through. Streak being called in, glide bomb from Priestley. Can they find the kill over towards you? Don't even need to. Sauce will be there to clean things up. Does find a double inside of 1. Now 5 seconds just remaining for Saints to be able to close out this hard point on P1 itself. You gotta go big if you're Gecko, and they just simply cannot stand. You saw there at the end, Anthrax just standing still thinking that they can call in the glide bomb. But let's be candid, it's not a cruise missile. It is not a Hellstorm missile from Black Ops 4. That takes eons to get to the ground itself. Needed to do it with the SMGs, just the presence not consistent enough from top to bottom when it comes down to the Panthers. The Saints able to rectify that early lead that the Panthers held over their head. They'll win the first hard point.
An impressive win at that proper. I take a look at what we just saw, right? The hard point was our big question. They're 10 and 6. They've had a lot more reps on hard point, but they've also lost a lot more than the Panthers had. And the Saints, I mean, they just looked absolutely excellent in that. So you got to give them the props. I think they started out looking pretty shaky, all things considered, and they were just able to slowly build momentum. And it felt like at a certain point, essentially into that second rotation, they simply began to snowball as a unit. They were winning all of their individual gunfights. They were using streaks effectively. And at that point, the Panthers just couldn't seem to break ahead. They couldn't win the rotations. They couldn't break the hills. They couldn't hold the hills either. And at that point, if you're losing on all of those objective fronts at a hard point, you're not going to win.
Take a look at the stats here from map number 1, and it's going to be quite telling, to be quite candid with you. You know, we were talking about Priestley. Their double negative start was not anything that you want to write home about, certainly. Brandon even going 20 and 27, but the thing that sticks out more than anything, at least, that they were able to get themselves closer and closer towards that hill. But on the opposite side for North, you talked about it. They were double negative for quite some time. We'll finish at that exact moment in time. Not a whole lot to be able to speak of. And Thrax, although going 36 and 21, the overall breadwinner when it comes down to raw KD, had 29 untraded kills.
I was about to point those out.
Yeah, it just didn't have the help.
Untraded. Yeah.
Just no help from the rest of the team, right? You have to assume that hardpoint going forward, especially in a map like Vanguard, even if you're going 1 for 2 against your own life, if your teammates are not there to be able to clean up on the space that is being taken away from finding said kills, the enemy team of the Saints are just going to constantly get those squad spawns. Of what we saw on the rotation going in towards Suits, what we saw with the hold back on 3 throughout the entirety of the second set, the Saints showing off that they are that well-oiled machine that we knew that they could always be at the beginning of the season.
And that's a big thing. Yes, Anthrax popped off. Yes, he was the slaying leader. Yes, he had the most non-traded kills. Yes, he looked impressive. But Saints were able to have more of a cohesive unit of participation in that hardpoint, and that, I think, was the big difference, right? All of them were participating in kills. None of them were massively negative. I mean, yes, you had some that were playing better than others, but it seemed like they were all kind of more of a cohesive unit than what we were getting out of Panthers initially. And what worries me now as we prepare for a Tuscan S&D, granted, different game mode, whole different world. These teams very evenly matched in their S&D records. But my question for this becomes, are you relying on Anthrax to play so well that he compensates for other players on the team struggling? Because if that's so, that's not a good strategy for long-term success.
It's never worked in Call of Duty's history, has it? When you just have one godlike player just being able to get Mixie in the middle of the map. Look, the regen does take a certain amount of time. This is not Black Ops 4. You ain't got no stimmy on the map, so you're not going to be able to refresh yourself and revitalize that push to be able to come all the way through with an SMG in hand. And Tuscan is one of those maps that, yeah, an SMG can finesse for a long while of time over by maps, through the middle of the map, in the courtyard, being able to stop that quick plan happening over by A, but I don't think that you can rely on that if you are Davenport. You have to be able to back yourself up and be able to rely off of cohesion more than anything to be able to get those quick plants over at A. The blind trust has to be there, and so long as Thrax is not having that blind trust with his teammates to follow up after all the kills and all the space that he has ended up finding, then it's him that needs to question his pace and his dictation as far as throughout the map is concerned, to be able to put themselves in a position to where their teammates might be around the corner to not only be able to get their trade, but the follow-up kill that is necessary for them to guarantee themselves the round.
I actually love that you mentioned pacing, right? Because that can be such an important factor. If your SMGs, whether you're the entry SMG or otherwise, if your pacing is off from each other, or if the main AR is perhaps playing a bit too slow compared to the pace set by the SMGs, that can throw the entire team off kilter when it comes to actually being a unit on the map. So I'm really happy that you pointed that out, because yes, if you're slaying, but you are getting everywhere before the rest of your team and then dying, and then it's a perpetual 3v4, that is a pacing issue that needs to be communicated and needs to be ironed out for the team, whether it's them ideally speeding up their pace to match yours, or you playing just a bit slower so you can at least try and be taking team fights with the entire squad behind your back. But let's get into it. Tuscan map looking familiar, because, well, we're not going anywhere. We just saw the hard point Saints coming out on top. And now it's time for Search and Destroy. This is a map where those offensive starts can be very tricky. And, well, the Saints are going to be the ones starting out on offense. That A bomb site, the favored one. Why? Because, well, it's right in front of you, and B is a little bit trickier to get to. But you have to watch about the top church. You have to watch the nades coming in over the top. But a fast plant is exactly what you like to see. Saints able to get the bomb down. Gucci now backing off. Priestley taken out. Sheldon with the first blood, and a nice shot by him to lock that down. Snipers on this map, pivotal if you want to be able to retake a bomb site. And Anthrax Gecko following it up, and suddenly, yes, you have the bomb down, but you're all dead. An easy defuse for Panthers to take the defensive round one.
Not easy to win around when everybody's dead, isn't it, Katie? So, I mean, yeah, a little tough, right? But I think what's immediately going to have to be considered is a post-plan situation for the Saints. You basically played into exactly what the Panthers wanted. Obviously, holding back the respect that they all ended up having. Didn't find information off the immediate nades, being able to dissuade that early plant from coming through. But there was no consideration for where Thrax was going to be coming from. He will be that lurking SMG player to try to influence themselves to the middle of the map, and that's exactly what all ends up unfolding as they get Mixie through the middle. Again, thanks to Sheldon by being able to find that opening kill with the Kar 98K. Now it's the Panthers' turn for an offense. Sheldon with the sniper just a bit outside. We'll probably end up seeing a nade just ever so glossed through the middle of the map. But a lot of space has been provided, given the fact that Thrax is also in the bottom side of Church.
Well, no surprise, Gorilla able to get a first blood on that defense, but immediately traded by Anthrax, and it's really about the team who's able to win the first offense, and Panthers trying to make it them as they are hovering around that A bomb site, but Priestley taking it down to a 3v2 Gecko. He's going to need to plant this bomb, but you got to be careful because Gucci's coming up right behind you. The flank opportunity is right there if he can run into him, and well, he doesn't even expect it. North taken out, now a 3v1. Yes, the bomb's down, but Gecko scrambling for his life, sees that there's at least one in Church, forced to back off. What can you do? Nothing. The defuse comes in, 2 defensive wins, a nice attempt, but that flank from Gucci wins them the round.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, it becomes just monotonous is the only word that I can honestly say. When you lose numbers like that, and it's just 2 players alive in a 2v odd situation, you have obviously the bomb planter. Their obvious focus is to extend the round, plant that bomb. It goes up to 45 seconds, but the second player just more or less needs to overwatch the bomb planter, needs to be that automaton that can watch across the ruin side just in case anybody tries to contest from the ruins itself. And by doing so, you more or less open yourself up to the flank. We love to have eyes in the back of their head, but that is just not the case here in Call of Duty Vanguard. Now another offense for the St. Clair Saints. You got a lot of utility out from the Davenport Panthers in that previous round, and Sauce is just going to hit this. Does see Thrax cross mid-map. That's going to shrug them away from sticking the plan.
Yeah, you can tell he goes for it, gets the call, will call that out to the rest of his team, wisely makes the decision to back off. And Priestley, this is the same spot that he hovered in on the round 1 offense. He was sniped on the other end, so he knows at least one person's nearby. But Anthrax, well, as he pushes through mid-map, Gecko takes out Gorilla, and that'll be a big defensive kill. Gucci still with the bomb, and this is 45, so you do still have time left, but very quickly, Proper, it's going to become scary for them, especially when you've just been stuck at this A bomb site. Seems like there's no potential rotation toward B. You're going to have to make a play. You can't just sit and wait because now you have 30 seconds left. Priestley able to connect with a few through the plywood, but not enough to even things out. And well, Sheldon, he'll take another with the snipe, and now in a 2v4 with 20 seconds left. You waited too long to make the play, and now you are being punished for it. No offense just yet, but I like this out of Panthers. Great job to just watch that back line, and Priestley, he'll get a double. Gecko trades him out, and the plant tries to come in, but you know that Gucci has to be there because there's no time left for him, Andy, and well, unfortunately, he gets taken down.
Yeah, it's the wrong title, right? You try to go for that plant, you get no extra benefits from it at all.
It took too long.
Yeah, I mean, the little bit of hesitation that ends up coming through, Katie, is you mostly had, again, the communication that you had Thrax on the bottom side of fire, but the hesitation comes through is, how the hell do you even deal with that? Is that you had one player of Priestley up in top fire that could potentially just try to throw away their life and go 1-for-1, again, covering out the flank. But because they were also kind of given the wrench in the situation that they still had a player up top Church, that little bit of punch-in-the-face mentality, once you had a plan, really came through for the Saints. Now a 1-round lead. The Panthers coming through on this offensive push, again, baiting all of the utility out. Gecko's on a 3, is the bomb planter as well. Again, 2 eliminations away from getting themselves the Glime, will be allowed to at least plant that rock, but and when it comes down to the Saints, they are more or less just allowing this to come through. They want to play for the retake.
I don't love that over-aggressive peek through that window from North. You're going to know that people are in that position across the sight line from you, so just gets a little too aggressive, gets punished for it. Anthrax there with the trade, though, to make things 3-3. Gecko doing everything he can, working on streaks as well on 4, protecting the bomb side. Priestley with a kill, and now you're in a 2v2. There's only 12 seconds left for the defuse. Just play your life at this point. You don't even have to kill him. Just run away and check the bomb. The Saints now going for the defuse. Anthrax tries to get the kill, not able to connect onto it. And, well, I don't know what went wrong there at the end of that play, but Proper, when I'm looking at that, you just have to run away.
Yeah, you just need to be able to play the time. Now, obviously, when it comes down to that fine 10-second mark, that's probably around the time that you want to at least go check it, because, again, Silent Plant is finally in the game. Bless you, Sledgehammer. Is that we have to...
You don't want everyone on the map to immediately know?
I'm definitely not a fan of it.
You didn't like those audio cues?
Definitely not a fan of it when I was playing my S&D wagers, I'll tell you that much. But even still, when it comes down to the Saints, what they found was a very over-egregious chows that were coming out from the Panthers. Again, holding situations where they didn't necessarily need to, but we go in towards this round. A nice nade from Gecko will actually come all the way through. That was on the bottom side of maps, keep in mind you. That was a set nade, that was rehearsed. That's going to open up the flank. Nobody aware that Brandon was lurking in the middle of the map. Good help from Priestley. We'll deal with North inside of the awning. Now this pinch play that's coming through from Gecko needs to stick to be able to secure the round.
And I think you're prepared for it, right? Oh, but Priestley, you gotta win that. I'm sorry, Gecko and Sheldon able to get theirs, and now a 1v1. Gucci and Gecko duking it out. There's more than enough time for the defuse, but, well, when the challenge from Gecko flies in as quickly as it does, that'll be another defensive round going the way of the Panthers. And I mean, when you're anticipating a flank and you get the initial shots, and you can't lose that.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think what was even more funny about that entire round is that Sheldon had to have been a cold breeze, a sneeze and a half away from death, maybe around like 15 HP or so, and went for the ego chow of all things. But hey, you gotta respect it. Probably would have done it too. Donut watch here for North, and a breadstick watch for Gorilla so far through 5 rounds worth of play, just reaching about the halfway margin. This does end up going the distance. Davenport Panthers with the slight edge. They do a great job on offense to be handed, getting a lot of utility out. And what's most important is that nobody is dealing with Thrax. Again, getting aggressive in the middle of the map, finds that first blood on a Gorilla inside of the awning for Church. That should be more than enough comfort, especially with Thrax making the play up top for that bomb to go down.
Nice job from him. Now a 4v2. You have bomb down, and finally at least someone falls. That will be Anthrax, as we have about 35 seconds left on that bomb. But, I mean, they're all set up. They've got 2 players to worry about, you know, the general location they're going to be coming from. They don't have time to go on some sort of long flank. So this should potentially be the first offensive round win, unless Brandon can make something happen. And, well, he slides out when he probably should have been pre-aimed, and that'll be a Panthers offensive win. Will extend out that lead. And what's impressive about this, I don't want to necessarily pick on him about it, but you had a hard point where Anthrax carries the Panthers as much as he can, and North tends to struggle. And now you have that 4-2 lead in the S&D here. Anthrax doing what he can. Gecko having a phenomenal map on a 4 spree at 10-2, but North 0-4.
I think what's even more impressive, I mean, yeah, Gecko is 10-2, 1 kill away from getting themselves a streak. You would think that would end up securing themselves if they hold it going in towards the next round. But even still, is that nobody's really stopping the mid-map pressure that Thrax is constantly finding for themselves. Finally, some nades do come through. That's actually going to force Thrax to at least respect the space for now. Sauce will end up seeing Anthrax there at the very last moment. North will be first blooded. Thrax trying to finesse their life inside of you. Sees a nade be thrown down. Do they lock down the kill on the Sauce? Yes, they will. And they find Brandon at the same clip. 6 HP and will live to tell the tale.
Yeah, I mean, doubles like that, you can't get gunned like that, especially when you know exactly where he is, and Gorilla trying to do everything he can. Panthers, they'll get the defuse. Gecko and Anthrax staying alive. That'll be 5 now for Gecko. And an easy defuse puts them at 5-2, and they've really started to run away from this, right? You get that first offense, give yourself that 2-round buffer, especially, and then it just seems like they've just found that confidence. The confidence that they seem to lose a bit in the latter half of the hard point, well, they are now getting an opposite outcome here in the search and destroy. Now at match point, Panthers 1 away from evening up this series. Can they win it on an offense?
We'll have to see. Gonna have to be 4 rounds in a row if the Saints want to take a 2-0 lead. Yeah.
We'll see now.
11-2 for Gecko. Does have that glide bomb, and this is the immediate call. You're gonna end up causing a lot of ruckus over towards this B site. That's going to be the immediate fake play. Now, you do have Sauce. They're closer towards bunks. Need to at least go 1-for-1 here. They will eat a lot of damage. No trade to speak of. Priestley was not in the immediate position, and they get funneled into North's LOS. Quick 2 kills do come through as the bomb gets planted at A. Now, Brandon Gorilla, they got to make a move.
Well, they got to make a move, and I don't even think they can anymore. Gecko's literally just following someone around, shooting him in the back. Brandon trying to be the hero, gets the kill with the pistol, gets a double around Church, but now you got to get the defuse. You're in a 1v2. This is your opportunity to keep your team alive, to keep alive the idea of a 2-0 lead in the series, but you don't have a lot of time. You only have 20 seconds. You have to get the defuse on top of killing North and Sheldon. And, well, maybe not the highest slayers on the team, but still going to be difficult nonetheless, unless you get a nice little snipe like that, but you don't have time anymore. You're forced to back off. Can you win the fight against Sheldon? You can't. A nice 3-piece, but just not enough time to make it happen. That'll be an answer back from the Davenport Panthers, making this a 1-1 series and a nice Tuscan search.
Guaranteeing ourselves at least a map 4 here, Katie, in between the St. Clair Saints and the Davenport Panthers, trying to at least make a distinct argument of why they are so deserving of that number 23 spot. And what's even more impressive coming away from that search and destroy as a whole was the simple fact that Anthrax, again, was getting away with highway robbery in the middle of the map. No stuns, no late nades coming through from the Saints. These adaptations need to be at least practice if you are the Saints going forward. Deny more aggressive teams that you will be playing. Davenport Panthers were just a test. You already had 2 previous tests from that against both Northwood and U of M in previous matchups. And Thrax is just exploiting one simple fact, that if you constantly give him a certain inch in the middle of the map, he will absolutely fly into your face, find that first blood, and that constantly just opened up the floodgates for what you saw from Gecko. A whopping 13 and 3 from the kid, 1,200 damage to boot, which is constantly on the flank with 9 non-traded kills.
Gorilla and North, neither of them having a particularly good time in that map, but look at the damage out of Priestley, Anthrax, and Gecko. All of them in the 1.2 range. Anthrax almost pushing 1.3. So really nice damage spread out of them. And you have to give it up to Gecko, right? I mean, you have a streak. You don't even necessarily have to rely on the streak. You win comfortably, 13 and 3. Anyone's. If you're in an S&D and you're posting double digits for your kills, you better be winning that search and destroy. And no surprise that the 6-2 is what we saw. But now we have to talk about Control right here in a second, Proper, because, well, Control came in a little bit late in Vanguard, so I feel like this is always a bit of an unknown quantity in these series.
Who honestly knows? All I can tell you is that the Canadians need to go back to the drawing board. The St. Clair Saints need to figure out their game plan before we end up going to that map number 3. Map number 4 of the Gavasu Hardpoint is at least guaranteed. We're going to throw things to a very short break, but on the other side, we got ourselves a Gavasu Control. Don't go anywhere. Map number 3 on the other side of this break. Welcome back to College COD. We got ourselves a little bit of a barn burner of series here in the Northeast Division A. My name is Proper. Joined with me is Katie. And, well, Katie, so far things are not so good when it comes down to the search and destroy for the Saints, but the respawns are looking quite good. We're all knotted up 1 apiece ahead of this Gavasu Control.
Well, we said it, right? When you're the team with the 10-6 hardpoint record and all your other stats in comparison to the Panthers are pretty much even, you're going to want to start out by winning map number 1. They were able to do that. Now, could they convert it into a 2-0 series lead, make it a match point? They cannot. So this is where we now prepare for the Control on Gavutu. You can see it, guys. We got a lot of Tuscan, a lot of Gavutu today. And if we get to it, a Berlin search and destroy. Berlin search, one of my favorite maps to watch search on, especially if you can get someone getting a little frisky with the sniper. But we got to get through this Control first, and we're guaranteed a map 4 Proper. So I think if you're the Saints, the question is, can you take the lead in the respawns? Can you force the Panthers to need to win that hard point? Can you force it to that map number 5? But really, if you're leading on the respawns, I think you're going to be able to take this away.
Gonna have to see. I mean, the double dose down here in the Solomon Isles on Gavasu Islands, it's gonna be interesting, to say the least. I mean, when you're considering all the discrepancies that you have, there is a lot more open opportunity, and I mean that both figuratively and literally, to be able to find yourself certain advantages in line of sights, whether you're talking about the anti-air gun, you're talking about top LST, as well as all the different avenues in between. So you really got to be looking towards your ARs, your automatons, to really kind of lean on to be able to find yourself these openings for these life's advantage, to be able to put yourself in a prime position to be able to close out these rounds, both offensive, defensive like. And who knows? Again, this respawn game mode could honestly favor out for the Saints because, let's be candid here, it's not exactly in SMG territory, but if Anthrax gets away with a highway robbery of what we just saw in the previous 2 maps, I don't know. This could be over in 4.
Yeah, I mean, the main question is, can you manhandle Anthrax? He was the big problem for the Panthers on map number 1, that Tuscan hardpoint. Saints, I mean, he had the highest slaying power out of anyone on the map. So if you're the Saints, you need to be able to lock him down. And, well, Panthers, maybe no surprise, lighten up the kill feed early on, but no one on the hill just yet as they're looking to stabilize in and around that boat. And Anthrax, we talked about him, already 2-0. You have to deal with this player, and Priestley finally able to shoot him in the back, but still, no one on the point. We're hitting about 55 seconds, so contest left and right now, proper. But you said it, I mean, this is an AR's playground. This is a very streaky map if you are having a hot moment as an AR, so that we might see potentially those depending on how it goes. But now Priestley getting a little bit of time onto A, a little bit of time, but not too much, not even a tick. So what do you do when you're just slowly running out of time right now? Like, no one has this hill time.
I just don't understand how you allow an SMG to be able to just waltz through the LST ship and quite literally put you on your back foot, St. Clair Saints. But hey, all right, you got to be able to at least rectify that going forward. Last possible push coming forward, 20 seconds. Got to get a player on towards this A zone. Got to stop that clock and extend any sort of a favorable kill feed for yourself. But when you try to come back through the arch rock, Sheldon's going to cut you down on a 5 spree. Glide bomb has been accrued for the Davenport Panthers, and albeit Saints, Gorilla, able to at least put themselves inside of the zone itself. It's just a 1-for-1 trade is all they're going to be able to find. And yeah, if you're the Saints going forward, you're just going to concede the rest of this because it is a 5-life lead. Davenport Panthers at the end of this round.
Yeah, I mean, Saints, they just couldn't get any sort of foothold on the A point. You give up full streaks on the side of Panthers. That's about as bad of a start as you can have. You made 0 headway. You didn't even get a tick in. So now, can you cause the same kind of consternation now that you're on the defense? So Panthers, as we prepare for things, I mean, you got to look at Gucci, right, as well. He's 0-6. He got cooked in that first attacking round. So we'll see if he can have a little bit better come back here on the defense. But right now the Panthers, they look like they are completely in control, especially, I mean, if they can have even a marginally better offense, then they are cruising through this control.
Very much so. Might have just joined the agency of the Gooch Gang sauce. I don't know what kind of sauce goes over top of a donut, but he is certainly making the argument for it right now. Davenport Panthers off of the offensive rip. Got a lot of players just keeping it mixy in the middle of the map, and lo and behold, it was Anthrax. Nobody can necessarily be surprised that they are finessing their life to be able to encroach the line of scrimmage, if you will, that much further forward, while you have one player of Sheldon ticking on up, trying to secure this first stick of progress, and Nort trying to cut down reinforcements from the defensive Saints.
Take a look at Gorilla. 6-3, finding the most success on Saints on a flank. He was searching for Gecko. He loses him, and now mid-map, he gets an initial kill onto the point. Brandon there to follow him up. He sees Sheldon. So what kind of magic can he make happen as he strings together a double, forces them off the point just for a second, able to deny that third tick, but, well, you still have Sheldon lingering, so a nice play thus far out of Gorilla, making his way around. And take a look, Brandon in that same exact spot on the minimap, just trying to rotate toward that flank position and cut off the reinforcements from the Panthers. He spots one. He'll start pushing forward, but you got to be able to get there a little bit faster because they're about to cap A, and unless Brandon can get himself something like a 3-piece, it looks like they're going to look down A. They secure it. Well, Brandon, he gets 2, but they were able to take A, and that's a lot more progress than you saw when you were on offense.
60 seconds on it onto the board. Davenport Panthers now trying to string together a couple of zones. You still have Gecko in the back. You got to deal with him if you are the Saints. Thank you, Gorilla, for finding yourself that kill. 8-5 now for them. And you're going to be pushing the Panthers back ever so slightly. One of the better head glitches in the game being exploited by Gorilla right now. Love to see it, but not exactly getting all of the chows in the world from the AA gun. Finally, we'll end up finding North some crispy, clean shots coming through from a Gorilla that is holding an automatic weapon, which scares the living hell out of me. I'm not going to lie, Katie, but even off of that, for the Davenport Panthers, take a look at the time. They got a player on the B zone that's going to stop that clock, and it's going to allow Anthrax to make a play in the back.
Well, and take a look as well. Sheldon was on a 4 spree, and he was doing a great job of just picking apart Saints players as they were respawning. Finally falls, but, well, Anthrax, they're all the way back in their spawn, just being a general nuisance. If you can get into that position, even if you get 1 or 2 kills, it slows their pace onto the point so substantially that now you have the Panthers pushing toward that second tick. They'll be able to just get it right now. If he can get 2 off the point, Gecko's able to get 1. Can he fight for his life? No, Priestley wins the trade. Just a fraction of a second away from that second tick. A big moment for Saints to at least deny that to them, but you still have so much time. And the big problem here, Saints, you only have 6 lives left. And well, Sheldon said, get off my point, please. We're trying to win this round. Thank you very much. You're about to have no respawns, as it's 4-11. Panthers looking to get back onto that point and stabilize. But at this point, it's really just TDM for you. You have the lives to waste. You can push toward them. Every kill you get now is removing someone permanently from this round.
Yeah, you got to play flawlessly going forward. 26 seconds, got to deal with this player that is on the opposite side of the tank. Priestley has to fly. They're going to be cut down the second that they almost attempt to do so. Gucci Gang Sauce, egregious shot to the MP40 at range. These 2 players try to get the heck out of Dodge will end up being cut down themselves. The Panthers securing themselves what is very difficult to do. Again, it does not go unnoticed how difficult it is to honestly take an offensive round on Gavatsu Control. I don't care what level of Call of Duty that you're playing, whether that's at home playing with your mates or whether you're in the CCL all the way up to the CDL. Winning an offensive round on Gavatsu Control is very difficult. But what the Panthers have done...
Look easy.
They did it. They did, certainly. And they were able to whittle down so many different angles. Sheldon, as you were pointing out, double positive for them. 14-6 was an absolute nuisance, creating a lot of pinch affairs for them and Anthrax to be able to push that line of scrimmage, find themselves in certain avenues to be able to cut down the Saints members as they were trying to get themselves back in towards the zone defensively.
And we talk about those streaks. So far, Panthers the only ones able to get any, and Anthrax putting up a double right off a rip as they will now defend. Potential here for them to get a 3-0 if they can have the same performance as they had in round 1, where they systemically shut down the Saints at every possible moment. This is actually the most hill time I think we've seen for Saints, the most time on point A that we've seen from them so far. Unfortunately, Panthers right there to shut down the push, to turn the kill feed white, and now the little progress Saints made just getting picked apart as Anthrax pushes toward the back line. I like the decision. Play your life, run around the back, get another, tries to snap onto a final one. Priestley finally gets the trade to take him out, but Gorilla doing everything he can to just give them some space to breathe in the middle of this map, but there is no space to be had. You're already down by 3 lives. You don't even have half of a tick into point A. You are finding the same lack of success you had in the first round, and now you only have 20 seconds, so what are you going to do? And what I'm wondering as well at this point, you haven't even attempted to try and maybe do a surprise push onto B, do some sort of split push to at least stop the clock, because now you just have 10 seconds left, and I don't really see a world in which you're gonna make something happen anytime soon, especially when Gecko is mowing you down with a pistol from the bottom of the ship. 2 seconds, wind down, and that'll about do it. Well, Gorilla's gonna play spoiler for 0.1 second, but when it's 9-17, that'll be a runaway 3-0 from the Panthers that made it look easy.
Wow. Well, that was a control. Okay. Yeah. I mean, like, when you're considering the opportunity that might present itself to maybe work your way past the AA gun and try to get over towards that B zone, you're mostly looking at Sheldon, of course, was that one lurking player to constantly put themselves over by the AA gun. And this is both offensively and defensively. They were that one island player, no pun intended, to where the map actually exists at. But I think that you mostly are looking at just the overall ability to be able to stand tall in a very open avenue that is over by that AA gun. If they're constantly being able to find berated damage, and they're constantly forcing the Saints to play in the backside of the radar tower, that again is going to make Anthrax's role so much more potent of what they are just able to do, getting up in your face. If they go 1 for 1, 1 for 2 more often than not, all off the pressure that both Gecko and Sheldon were finding on 2 different sides of the map, that's going to end up putting themselves in a favorable position more often than not. The life advantage was certainly going to be talked about every single round as the Panthers were just relentlessly living up as if their mascot had presented itself on the prowl, on the hunt for all of these St. Clair Saints members, not allowing them to breathe, as it was a definitive 3-0. Anthrax 20-12 for them, 13 non-traded kills, and from top to bottom, I mean, you can see 18-10 for Sheldon, say what you will, 28 engagements, not exactly the most. Well, that's because it was a hot 3-0, and they were playing that island role to absolute perfection.
Well, take a look. Low interactions with the second highest damage on his team at just slightly over 2K. And I've been mentioning some of North's struggles. Well, not here. Everyone on Panthers either going positive or at least breaking even. North going 12-12. And you look at Gucci and Priestley, what a painful map for them. There is no way that they were having fun. And this is where I get nervous because, yes, they had an excellent comeback in map number 1 after a potential of being down 60+ points. They consistently worked their way back after that second rotation on Tuscan and just ran away with it. But they've been a non-entity in the search and destroy, and especially in this control. You lose 6-2, you lose 3-0, and Proper, I'm getting really nervous for the Saints because now you have to win a hard point on the map that your ARs just got waxed on.
You're getting nervous. All of Canada's getting nervous. Their one hope here has to come through in the Gava2 hardpoint to force out the Berlin search and destroy. And honestly speaking, there wasn't really much to really write home about if you are the Saints, given how there was really no massive AR presence to be able to find avenues. And I'm glad that you brought up the one simple fact that, you know, low engagements, but all the damage to speak of in the world. Because, I mean, Gava2, say what you will about the map, not exactly the most beloved out of the pool that we have here in Vanguard. But the simple fact still remains of tried and true Call of Duty that when the ARs are finding such a sufficient amount of damage from longer lines of sight, you can then play that Overwatch role for the SMGs then to encroach forward to then lock down those eliminations from weak players. And I say weak both in the simple fact of their HP and the simple fact that they were cowering behind rocks more often than not. That one thing is going to constantly exist when it comes down to Gava2 hardpoint, especially when you're talking about rotations from 1 to 2, getting players in the top LST ship. I'm looking at Sheldon to be able to be that player, to be able to be up on the top LST, to be able to find those rotational gunfights, even in longer range, not allowing the Saints to be able to get back in. And don't even get me started on with the streaks that we didn't even get to see, because streaks, if they're accrued as fast for the Panthers, and what we saw on that control going in towards this Gava2 hardpoint, the breaks can come through lickety split. You can end up flipping out spawns going back towards 3 and 4 in a snap of a finger, just from one glide bomb alone.
Yeah, and that's something to mention as well, right? Now we have seen the Panthers getting streaks and not even needing to utilize them. And if that's exactly what starts happening in this hard point, you could potentially see as quick of a map 4 as you've seen from maps 2 and 3, and that's exactly what we're about to get into. Now series map here for the Panthers after falling down 0-1 in map number 1. The Saints fighting for their lives, desperately trying to push it to that Berlin search and destroy. But Panthers, well, they seem alive, they seem confident. And if that control slang was anything to go by, well, this could be a very scary hard point. I mean, I know Gavutu can be kind of a frustrating map, as you said. SMGs, maybe not the most fun for them, but I love to watch a map where ARs shine. And if you get a moment as an AR to string together a nice series of kills, give me that POV all day. I'm here to watch it.
Look, I'm not exactly an 18 and cracked player, okay? I play the AR. I enjoy my slow, methodical style of slowly encroaching my way. I enjoy Gava2 hardpoint. To be candid, I hated it. I hated it at the beginning of the season, but it's grown on me because a lot of teams are really starting to understand how to manipulate the map to their fine degree, and also recognizing that the automaton isn't terrible, even from its hip fire, to be able to get up close and personal to influence those gunfights, to be able to give yourself the space provided for players like Anthrax to then push the envelope that much further into the enemy spawns. I think that it's going to be quite telling that if you are the Saints going in towards this hardpoint as a whole, remember when we go back towards that Tuscan hardpoint, that they were down considerably through the first set of hills, that they actually brought themselves back. What was the biggest catalyst for that? Was their triple SMG. You're not necessarily going to have the opportunity to be able to do that. Look, the MP40, it might as well be a Black Ops 4 Maddox. It does have quite the effective range, but it's not going to be as effective when you come onto the Solomon Isles here on Gava2. You have to be able to rely on your ARs to be able to find those medium long-range gunfights. Not always the kills, but the damage to then provide the space for the rest of the members to be able to take it back and then influence yourself in towards those favorable gunfights, and then by turn giving yourself some serious hardpoint time.
Well, not only that, too, lest we forget, up until map 1 of this series, the Panthers hadn't dropped a hard point. So it's hard to believe they're going to drop 2 hard points in a row after going into this series 11-0. So that's always another stat to keep in mind. I mean, now 11-1. 11-6 for the Saints on the other side of things. But all the momentum seems to have shifted their way, and momentum plays a large part in COD. Are you playing confident? Do you feel like as a unit you're comfortable with each other? Do you have the wind in your sails? Panthers, really, this is their game to lose, in my opinion, their map to throw away, and no one wants to give up a 2-1 lead to push it to a Game 5, so Panthers here, I think, very much so trying to push onto this point, trying to close it out on a Gavutu hardpoint as we kick things off. Starting with Brandon on the side of the Saints, throwing some nades out, connects with a few, gets stunned in return, but the first push, Panthers on the point. No first blood just yet, no one willing to give that up, but the problem is, well, you got to do something as Gorilla and Brandon able to string one together, but who else would take them out but Anthrax? Now, a contest on the site, but Sheldon there with the support play, able to keep it at 11-0, and well, Anthrax and Sheldon having their way on the point, getting as much time as they can, and so far the slaying looking good for them. Anthrax already at 3-0.
The spawns are going to flip ever so marginally, but mostly when you're looking at that opening engagement, it was closer towards a 3v4 than it was anything else, given the fact that you had Priestley just off the rip really enforce their way towards what could be, I guess, considered the favorite side of the map. You have a little bit of a quicker opportunity to be able to yeet your way up towards top LSC. Now, they're going to be dealt with when it comes down towards this rotation. Certain shades of Tuscan hardpoint coming back as Davenport Panthers are able to get 31 seconds off of P1, and they are able to get themselves rotational gunfights to put themselves up in top LSC. Gorilla will drop down. With that, Rap Pistol will end up cleaning up one player, almost gets the better of Thrax, but the early damage will then be cleaned up by the Saints to be able to break their way in for 2.
And a great job, Priestley, after a tough map. Number 3 is having a great start here at 5-2. They're able to get a couple seconds on the board, but Anthrax just so consistently a nuisance in and around these points, never stays in one spot for too long, and now he's just refusing to give the Saints any information on where he is, and he'll be able to get one, gets traded as Gorilla just trying to be the hero, trying to be as annoying as possible, and on a force spree, so potential for him to get some streaks in just a moment, and those could come in desperately for the Saints. Anything that you can get to try and keep this close. You're within 11 points, but Anthrax, once again, well, he's going to find everyone, except you got to make sure if you're going to fly over him and try and do a 180, make sure that you get the kill.
Yeah, kind of really putting on their wings, either they're angelic or devilish, I'm not too sure, but
look, if you're gonna style
just a little bit too
don't
close.
break your ankles on the way down, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, or break your controller as well. He literally just slammed that right stick down, now didn't he? But still unable to break up inside the spawns. And again, this is one thing that we do end up talking about here in Call of Duty, especially for Vanguard here on the third hardpoint for Gavutu. If you cannot get players successfully in the backside of the customs building, you are unsuccessful breaking things for the initial time going in towards 3, you are essentially going to concede what is about to be a full 50 in favor for the Saints. Yeah, it's going to be a lead swap, sure, but the Davenport Panthers conceding said space are going to be looking towards P4 to get themselves a full 50, if not 60.
And when I'm looking at the Panthers, I'm looking at Sheldon right now. He's been playing so well, but a slow start for him now on a 3 spree at 5-7. He has been struggling throughout this map, so if he picks up pace, that's exactly what the Panthers are going to need as the Saints now taking the lead. This is not too dissimilar, perhaps, from what we saw in map 1. Panthers with an early, solid lead, and Saints able to answer back, and Priestley, he will pull out the first streak of the day, takes out North, but Anthrax there with a double on a 3 before he gets cut down, and the Panthers just trying to work their way back onto this point. They have some control, but a full push now coming out from Saints. Priestley and Brandon with kills. You have Sheldon left alive on the point doing what he can. They're holding on for just a moment, and this is actually a great move for them to at least be able to even things up. You only have about 20 seconds of time left on the hill, and now Anthrax 14-8. Can he get streaks? It's going to be really dangerous here for the Saints if he can. And well, if you give him kills like that, a streak finally on the side of Panthers as Sheldon continuing to try and find his footing, and North struggling here at 3-11.
Anthrax has just as much kills as his other 3 teammates combined, by the way. 16-10 for them. Through the rest of this hardpoint is going to be a continuous uphill battle as the Saints are just really progressively playing for the backside of the spawns, and they're going to be looking to do the same again. I'm not even too sure how that ended up ensuing. You got players for Davenport Panthers inside the hardpoint, for goodness sakes, but somebody for Davenport Panthers pushed a little bit too close to the middle of the map, And that means that the Saints will spawn in for 5. They're going to be able to get that break in from the back. That's going to put the Panthers on their back paws, if you will, and try to break back in. You do not want the Saints to be able to soak up the back 30.
A nice nade, actually, from Anthrax there, coupled with a kill from North, at least takes them off the point for just a couple seconds. And, well, what that means is seconds of time that could be going Saints' way. Panthers at least able to stall out a little bit, but really, this has been their hill. Unfortunately, a team nade comes in from Sheldon to take out Anthrax, and the remainder of this time will go the Saints' way. Panthers able to tie it up, but for just a moment. And now, as we get back to P1, we start this second rotation. Gecko, Panthers, what can you do? Are you going to lose 2 hard points in a row to Saints, a team that is undefeated until today in hardpoint, trying to work their way back into this series, trying to make something happen? And, well, 50% of your team is struggling. It's going to make it that much harder, but they're doing a good job of fighting it out over P1. This is where they found success. At the very start, they locked this hill down, and they'll finally retake the lead here, 116 to 114. A push through the top of the map out of Gucci, trying to get some nice sight lines. Not able to see anyone just yet. Gorilla trying to stop any pressure from mid-map, but Panthers on P1 finally getting some solid footing, answering back and extending that lead.
Anthrax is going to make me vomit with some of these engagements that he's walking away with. I mean, the early damage from the pistol, quick spops over to the MP40, walks away with a handful of more eliminations. Now trying to keep things mixy for the rotation. It's going to be a big 1v1. Gets the better of Priestley, who was mid-reload on the Automaton, which really feels like a sentry, but it's the only kill that you're able to find if you are the Panthers, in a string that comes through for the Saints, who are just relentlessly working off of their chemistry, making sure that every single I is dotted, every single T is crossed. That's until the Panthers resurface themselves in the bottom side of LSC. Big gunfight on the rotation on the outside of this ship. We'll at least keep the hardpoint neutral for now. Davenport Panthers not exactly a big lead to speak of, but with these gunfights going their way, Katie, they're really going to be able to set their paws inside of this hardpoint for the back 30.
And Gucci, a nice moment for him if you lose that fight to Anthrax. That's just all the time in the world, continuing to go the Panthers' way. Brandon trying to be the hero, able to get 2 on the point to soak up some of this time cut down on this deficit, able to win another onto Gecko. A great job from them to work on the scrap time, but who is there to just be annoying? Anthrax gets traded out quickly. And now Sheldon, 11 and 15, starting to wake up here. North still struggling, but Panthers holding on to the lead through this hill, but now you're going to have to get the break, and you're going to have to get it quickly. Saints, they're set up in this top right hill, a hill that can be so frustrating to get to, but Anthrax, he's going to try and open it initially, give the call-outs to where these players are. He's able to take out Gucci, get them off the hill, but now the rest of your team has to win the gunfights to actually be able to make some headway toward this point, and, well, so far they have not been able to do that consistently, getting pushed back by the Saints.
Yeah, when you call on those streaks, I mean, 2 things need to end up happening. Of course, the communication from the players, positioning, as you said, and the other thing needs to end up happening is that the players need to also push forward while the streak is also being called in. The biggest problem that when Thrax ended up calling in that streak is that there was really nobody in the positional advantage for the Panthers to be able to quite literally fly into the backside of Customs, get themselves to the backside of the jungle, and then maybe try to flip out the spawn to be able to break inside 3. So the Saints going to be able to sit pretty as far as this 10-point lead is concerned. They're at 169, nice, comparatively to the 159 for Davenport Panthers. And now this rotation going over towards 4 is going to be a big one. Panthers need to hold on towards this hill. The last time around in the previous set of hardpoints, St. Clair Saints were relentlessly trying to storm the beaches, and they came up successful to break in the spawn. So far, the first push, not successful.
And Anthrax, this is the second hill now that we've seen where he's had the crucial opening 1v1 win to secure the hill and get it locked down. Anthrax doing everything he can, will fall immediately. Those spawns are so strong for a hill like this. You're going to have Panthers just right next to it, a constant flood of reinforcements. And when you have all of the Saints funneling through this tiny little opening, Anthrax is just going to run you down with the SMG and have his way. Panthers, a nice hold for them, 201 to 169. And Anthrax, can you stay alive as you try and make this rotation over to the next hill? You're going to have an anchor there out of Gecko to soak up the remainder of the scrap time. But if you get an opening break here, I think it's all wrapped up. Sheldon able to at least get one. Anthrax, a nice trade there to keep him alive. Takes out Gucci, and, well, this is a beautiful break into the hill for the Panthers that honestly made it look easy. If you're the Saints, you need to lock that down, and, well, maybe this is the moment for them to answer back, but Sheldon and Anthrax doing a great job of pushing them back into their spawn and getting time, as they are now just 35 seconds, make it 30 away from winning this series 3-1.
Look, Katie, from 4-5 to this exact moment in time, it is now 3 points to the 60 of Davenport Panthers in the favor. They locked down 4. They're able to win the rotational gunfights, get in towards 5, and a lot of that is thanks to Anthrax, who is now on a 4 spree, 38-22 for them. 20 seconds remaining inside P5. This will guarantee yourselves, at the very least, a rotation going over towards 1, but Thrax is not done yet. Gets that 5th kill, tries to slide in for the beatdown, will lose their life. But the job is still done. They got themselves the glide bomb. And although Brandon does take down Gecko, initially going over towards 1, you still have players that are finessing their life towards the middle of the map. And all it is, just one streak, one good break is all it takes. And the Panthers are going to put away map number 1, or map number 4, excuse me.
Gecko brings in that streak. It was a nice double from Brandon to lock down our 3rd rotation here at P1, but Gecko flies in with the double, trades back and forth. Anthrax now with a streak, and this is why those streaks, you call them in to secure the hill. You're 5 seconds away from closing this out, and this is going to be the last attempted push for the Saints. If you can hold this off with Anthrax, of course you can. Make it 4, make it easy on them. Panthers, they start the map strong, they stumble, and then they're able to get the regain, and you gotta talk about Sheldon. They struggled when 50% of their team was significantly negative, and what ends up happening is, yes, North is still having a tough time of things, but look at Sheldon. Sheldon was so negative, and then he comes all the way back and ends it at 23-22. What a great regain out of them.
Yeah, look, Sheldon was the overall breadwinner as far as what they were able to find, as far as the positional advantage that well, Thrax was quite literally handing them on a silver platter. When Thrax is just getting mixy inside of all these different hardpoints, with an SMG on a map like Gavatu, keep in mind something needs to go back to the drawing board if you are the Canadians out of St. Clair Saints. You just cannot allow any member, but I don't care if they have an automaton, an SMG, a rap pistol, it can honestly run the Volk for all I care, but you cannot allow any player to be able to encroach forward and find all these different timings, all these different avenues. Yeah, there were certain points in time where you finally ended up taking Thrax down, but they were the kill-death ratio victor at the end of the day. St. Clair all ended up leaving, of course, but at the end of it, you look at Thrax, 43-24, just a few kills away from being double positive. 30 of those kills were non-traded, keep in mind you. And from all of that, 4,500 damage. They were just always opening up the floodgates for the rest of Davenport Panthers to get themselves in superior positions to then really enforce their hand as far as what you can find when it comes down to Gavatu hardpoint, just making sure that nobody from the Saints were ever comfortable in trying to resurface themselves in hardpoints, to put themselves in positions to try to end up breaking the hardpoints. I mean, apart from Brandon and Gorilla, I know that 2 players ended up leaving, but I ended up seeing what you were bringing to the table, and nothing was something that you want to write home about.
No, I mean, they had an opportunity and it slipped away from their fingers, and really Anthrax, look at that damage, almost 4.5k damage for Anthrax alone, the kill death, that's going to reflect it, but honestly, you have to be extremely impressed with how they play it, especially when the teammates, all it takes, you can win if one teammate's struggling. It's extremely hard to win a hard point if 2 of your teammates are struggling, and Sheldon's ability to regain, get comfortable, and sometimes all you need in a map is to have a nice kill spree, get a nice snap onto someone, and it kind of gets that confidence back. It gets that gas going for you, and you just feel better when you're playing, and I think Sheldon was able to find that. So let's look at the final breakdown. Well, Saints, they answer early, and well, they went missing through the rest of the series, and a 6-2, a 3-0, and a 250-185. Panthers, maybe a little sleepy in map number 1, but looking solid maps 2 through 4. Yeah,
when it comes down to it, look, the map ban veto process is absolutely a staple when it comes down to competitive Call of Duty, and it seems that the Panthers definitely won that opening bout when it comes down to picking the maps that they are going to be oddly more comfortable on. I mean, say what you will about the Tuscan Search and Destroy. A lot of opportunities for the Saints to be able to deny a lot of the plays that were coming through for the Panthers. The 3-0 in control, inexcusable. There was too many different opportunities to where the Panthers were quite literally waltzing, or I guess frolicking as it may be, to be able to put themselves in a position to be able to convert 3 rounds in a row like that. If you're the Saints going forward, look, there's a reason why you were taken away from the top 25 power rankings ever since losing to Michigan. And going forward off of that, there has to be a lot of consideration for what this team might end up doing. They're not going to be a top 3 team coming out of the Northeast Division A. But at the end of it, that's our first series for the day. We're going to be kicking things off to a little bit of a break, maybe take a little bit of a dive into what's happening on the Bravo stream. We got ourselves up for an absolute barn burner of a match. We're sticking in the same division, in the same region. We're going to be taking a look at Northwood University going up against U of M. Wolverines trying to make an argument for being the #1 team here in the Northeast Division A. My name's Proper, that's Katie, and we'll be right back after this break.